Hey guys, how's it going? Happy 4th of July. So it's been about 5 days since I made that last video on how to take cuttings from a mint plant and get them to root. And I thought I'd share an update on how the plants are going. So I thought maybe 7 to 10 days from that video being posted, I would be making this follow-up video. But when I checked them this morning to wipe the dome dry, I noticed something pretty cool. I want to share it with you. All right, so when I took the dome off to wipe it clean, to my surprise, we have roots. And some of them are rooting like crazy, especially out of where I cut that leaf off. As you can see, that one back there has some really healthy white fuzzy ones. And I think it's 100% success rate again. Oh, this is pretty neat here too. See if I can focus. See? I didn't even dip them that far down, but just from the humidity being in here. Oh, this one got trapped in the dome. That was against the wall, I couldn't see it. But even that one still rooted, as you can see. So pretty much see any one of those little white dots, those little white dotted areas, that's an area where it could potentially root. And oh, as you can see, one of the plugs got a little dry, but for the most part, everything stayed hydrated. And here's an indication that we had a few bugs. So the little black dots, those are caterpillar poops. And I bet I can find the culprit wrapped up in this leaf right here. Yep. Oh, come on, focus. Oh, I touched the screen in the wrong spot. There we go. Anyway, he's in there. So, yeah, basically, that's all you need to do to get them to root. And they definitely have roots coming out of the bottom of the tray. Look at that. So I'd say one more thing I forgot to mention in the other video. Another great indication or good indication that they have started to root is notice how dark green the leaves are compared to the new stuff on top. And they've actually grown just a little bit. So when I put the dome on, some of them are actually touching the top of the dome now, which means that they are growing. And the light green tops mean that they are hungry. That's a nitrogen deficiency. So what I'm gonna do is, oh, that's a little dead bug or something. I'm gonna basically pop one out for you, show you how many roots are in that plug, and hopefully it's root bound enough to hold all the dirt together. What you don't want to do is have the plugs, when you're pulling the plug out, all the dirt start to fall off and take some of those roots with it. But yeah, I'm pretty happy. So yeah, 50 out of 50, I am assuming. I see one, yeah, actually I see roots on every single one. So anyway, let me pop one out and show you. All right, so when you are popping them out, basically you don't gotta squeeze the sides or anything like that to loosen it up. Just push from the big hole underneath and the whole plug should come out just like that. And I lost a tiny, oh no, I didn't lose much dirt at all, but it came out good enough to start the transplant. If you left it in for about 3 more days, 2 to 3 more days, this would probably be root bound and just hold that dirt all together. But yeah, they're ready to be transplanted. So I'm probably going to go into 4-inch pots, basically just like this little succulent. Because I have a auger that I use to dig holes, and let me show you. So if I was going to go into the ground with a 4-inch pot, I would use this auger right here. And as you can see, it makes the perfect hole for a 4-inch. If I was gonna just do the plug right here, I would use this auger right here. I got both these off Amazon. Pretty darn cheap. I believe they were either, I think they were $19.99. But I just hook it to my power drill and man, piece of cake. And if you plant bulbs in the spring, perfect for planting bulbs. You can go through your yard and just make a grid, do a straight line, whatever you want, and then just pop it in and push the dirt back over. Super simple. But yeah, I'm gonna basically be spending the next, I don't know, hour or so getting these into 4-inch pots. And once they are completely root bound in that 4-inch, then I will probably take them out and put them straight into the ground. If I feed them pretty good liquid fertilizer with and I have a lot of mycorrhizae in my soil, that'll just help the root growth, or help promote root growth and healthy root growth. You want nice, white, healthy roots. And so yeah, don't skimp on fertilizer. Don't use granular fertilizer. That breaks down super slow. Liquid fertilizer is available instantly. I hate to say the name, but this one brand makes them grow like a miracle. If you hate that company like I do, then there's definitely other liquid fertilizers you can use. But the company that I was talking about, probably owned by a guy named Scott's or something. Yeah, they make a 20-20-20 all-purpose fertilizer, and it's probably the cheapest route you can go. I buy the big 5-pound container, and it's pretty simple. The little scoop they have a big scoop and a little scoop that comes with it. The little scoop is like 1 little scoop per gallon of water, and when I do 2 gallons of, because my watering can is 2 gallons, it brings the ppm right at about 450 ppm, which is a pretty low ppm. So you're not going to burn the plants right away, or at all, I should say, right away. But as they get bigger, I increase the ppm to accommodate for the bigger plant needing more food. And eventually you'll probably be at 800 to 1000 ppm on the bigger container pots when you get to a 5-gallon. And yeah, that's about it. I use a little bit of kelp as well. Plants love the kelp. It also helps feed the mycorrhizae. If you're going to spend all this money on mycorrhizae, you might as well feed it something too. A lot of people put molasses in their soil, and that molasses will actually choke out the mycorrhizae. That molecule is just too big for the mycorrhizae to break down and eat. A smaller chain molecule, I forget what it's called. Let me go and double check. Hold on a second. Okay, so I checked, and so the plants, or not the plants, the mycorrhizae, it's like a fungal inoculant that you can add into your soil. It's gets its name from the rhizosphere, which is the root zone. Basically, it inoculates that root zone with a fungus that kind of propagates in that channel where the roots go, and the fungus just helps the plant uptake the nutrients faster. And the mycorrhizae does like to have a sugar source, and it prefers the sugar that the plant makes, which is sucralose. So some people say you can feed it molasses. I would dilute it out a lot. Molasses will actually choke out the fungal network, and you're just cross-canceling out what you've started. Another thing I need to warn you about is you can't just use tap water to water your plants after you inoculate with mycorrhizae and the fungal. It'll just, any chlorinated water will just basically kill that off right away. So if you can, use filtered water, or a filter that has a dechlorination filter. I have a what is Pulanai? I got, I don't remember the name of it, but I bought it. Hangs on the wall. It's got 2 containers it does filter out any chlorine. So my water is non-chlorinated when I feed these things. If you're just using your hose, the tap water, chances are you're on the city water. And I wouldn't spend a ton of money on mycorrhizae if you're just going to be using your city water. Some people say you can put an air stone, get like a reservoir, put an air stone in there, bubble it for 24 to 48 hours to help dissipate some of that chlorine. But I mean, I've never seen any evidence or any like lab tests of any of that. So I can't tell you 100% if that works. They make little inline chlorine filters, or dechlorinator filters, pretty inexpensive. If you're going to be like taking this super seriously and having an indoor garden, or or a greenhouse garden, I definitely recommend getting a filter. I think mine's called the Big Boy. I've tried reverse osmosis filters, and I was shocked at how much water those things waste. We were filling up 55-gallon barrels, or the plastic barrels, drums, and to use as reservoirs. And for every 55-gallon reservoir that we filled, it would basically, the wastewater, it would fill a 275-gallon tote. Because my friend was just letting it run out the greenhouse into the ground, and we were on a hill, and we noticed that there was like a lake forming downhill a little bit. We couldn't figure out what was going on. And I was like, well, that water is just draining out of the the reverse osmosis filter. I was like, and he picked it up, and it was like literally like a steady stream of water coming out of it, and compared to like the trickle that was going into the barrel. And so he had it on like the highest filtration setting, which is like a 5-to-1 waste ratio. So for every gallon of reverse osmosis water that he was making, he was wasting 5 gallons. So I ran that line into a big tote, a 275-gallon tote, and sure enough, man, after that 55-gallon drum was filled, that tote was basically almost overflowing. And so we decided to keep that wastewater and use it to feed our outdoor plants that were in the field. We had about 4,000 hemp plants, CBD hemp plants, that we were growing back in the summer of 2019. And even though that water had a high ppm of probably 1,400, sometimes up to 2,000, in an outdoor setting like that, through a drip line, it didn't really matter, because what it was removing was the minerals that the plants want anyway. So we would pump that tote up to our reservoirs that were gravity fed with a little bit of a pump assist. We would mix in our powder fertilizer, and we would pump that all down the field through the drip lines. And yeah, it was fun, a fun little experiment. We did 3 acres, so we did about 1,500 plants per acre, I think, and it was a lot of work, to be honest. Even just we propagated 4,500 seeds to be safe, make sure we had enough, and that took time. And then we had to build a little like hoop house out of PVC and plywood and 2x4s with a shade cloth to get them to be big enough to go out into the sun. So once they got enough height to them through that filtered sunlight in the hoop house, it also saved our butts when we had a freak rainstorm come through. We had them all kind of outside of the hoop house, kind of getting adjusted to the intense sun. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, thunder and lightning, massive rainstorm came. We had to bring them, and dude, they were like flooding the trays that they were in, because we were using these trays right here. Fill them with dirt, poke a little hole, put the seed in it, hydrate. And then once you see them start to sprout, hydrate. We were watering 2-3 times a day to keep these little seedlings alive. And once they got about 4 inches tall and they had maybe 4 or 5 nodes on them, and we knew that the plug was root bound, we went out and every, I think, 36 inches, or 36 inches, about 3 feet spacing, boom, put one in the ground. We just used a little auger, boom, boom, boom. I did that. A guy followed behind me putting the plugs in, and had pretty much everything planted in about 2 days. And in 2 weeks, they went from this little thing to about a foot tall plant. And that's when we knew we were gonna make it. And when we were done harvesting, or about to harvest in mid-October, all the plants were 6 to 8 feet tall. It was a jungle, and it was pretty cool. We used all feminized seeds from a company in Colorado. We got our license in Oregon for to do hemp, and we went with a really high CBD variety. And we didn't do the biggest yield, but we filled a 30-foot by 100-foot warehouse. We would cut the branches off the plants. We ran trellis 25 feet wide, so we had a walkway on each side, 5-foot walkway. And then every 2 feet, we hung netting from the rafters. And we would just have a guy on a ladder just putting all these branches up to hang dry. And we literally filled that entire warehouse full. And when it was all said and done and dried, there was about 1,500 pounds of hemp flowers. And I don't know if you've ever seen 1,500 pounds of hemp, but it was impressive for me. But we got lucky because our variety kind of flowered late. We had a few rainstorms come through like right in the beginning of October, which kind of caused a lot of mold in other people's fields. People had their big buds like that on their plants, and ours were pretty small at that point. And we got lucky. The buds didn't mold. It was a really nice day the next day. I went out there with a leaf blower up and down the rows, just kind of blowing off any excess water, and they dried out right away. And then we had nothing but sun until like November 5th. And I remember the last day of harvest was November 1st, which is unheard of in Oregon, actually. So I just got lucky that year. I know guys that lost, 5, 10, 20 plus acre fields of their hemp, like completely went to mold. And that would be really, really frustrating and sad, because we started in May. So you got May, June, July, August, September, October. So 6 months of hard work put into that operation, and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Just the seeds alone were $1 a seed, so we spent $4,500 just on the seeds. We harvested, it took us 10 days to hand harvest that whole field, and we had 10 people working 8 hours a day, and they all worked for $100 a day. And so that was $1,000 a day for 10 days straight. And not to mention all the nutrients we had to buy over the course of the 5-month growing period. We had to buy, gosh, I think 100 of these flats. Yeah, because there's 50 in each one, that's 5,000. 100 of those flats to do 4,500 seeds. And that's a couple, wait, I guess it's not that much money, but anyways, it costs a lot of money to do hemp. And when it was all said and done, it was like pretty much worthless. But I got a lot of CBD oil out of it. I had the plants extracted with ethanol extraction, cold, filtered, winterized, and then in triple filter inline, so it's winterized crude at that point. And then from that point, it went on to white film machine to distill out the THC, and it leaves you with from a black oil to a perfectly golden, beautiful high CBD oil. And yeah, we even stripped the terpenes off the plant first, the aromatics. This friend of mine made this extremely cool vacuum chamber extractor, a terpene extractor that was trailerable, that he pulled behind his truck. It had 6 gigantic, God, I would say, bigger than a keg of beer, like a 15-gallon keg of beer, a little bit taller than that and a little bit bigger than that, where you would load the material into, seal it all up, pulls a vacuum on that. He had a gigantic cold trap that he would run with the chiller, and that cold trap would condense the terpenes, and then they would basically drip into a collection chamber. And it even had a cold trap for the water, so if there's any moisture in the material, it would extract the moisture as well. So when he gave me the stuff back, it was bone dry, ready to go into the ethanol extractor. And that was a very cool process to go through. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and transplant these things. It's 4th of July 2023, and as soon as I'm done with this, my neighbors are planning a party. They're having a live band in the cul-de-sac. He spent a couple $1,000s on some pretty good fireworks, and we're gonna have some fun tonight. All right, thanks for watching. And after I get these all transplanted into 4-inch pots, maybe I'll make another update video in a couple weeks to show you how well they've rooted, and then maybe I'll go plant them and show you how I do that. So one thing I am gonna do, since I noticed there's a couple dry plugs in here, I'm gonna mix up some of that fertilizer I was talking about and go ahead and feed them now. I'm not gonna wait till I transplant. I'm gonna get them a little more root bound before I transplant, and I'm gonna leave the dome off and leave them in filtered sunlight. It's a hot day though today. I'm talking 92 degrees. So I'm probably just gonna feed them, put them back on the rack. But after I notice some new growth, I am gonna take them out and probably leave them in the shade just like they are. You can put them under a tree, but do not put them in direct sunlight. You will just cook these things. Those LED lights don't have much UV. I mean, they have a little bit, but not as much as the sun. So you want them to slowly get used to being outside again, because for the last week, their light source has just been 80 watts of LED. And so yeah, I'm gonna feed them, probably do like I said, a 300, 400 ppm, give them some kelp, do the all-purpose 20-20-20 fertilizer. I mean, it's designed for these plants, so, and I have a lot of it. It's really inexpensive. You don't wanna go out and, so if you start to feed them organic stuff right now, that has to break down. If it's liquid organics, you're probably shelling out quite a bit of money. As where you can buy one of those little pound bags of that food that I was talking about that does miracles to the grow, for a couple bucks at your, pretty much any store has that stuff that has a nursery or garden supplies. You don't have to go to a specialty shop for that. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna feed them. I might spray these with some, oh look, there's a bug. I might spray them with some, no, I'm not going to spray them with pesticides. I just hate pesticides, I don't see too much damage to the plants. I'm going to pluck off the leaves where the bugs are hiding and just call it good. Like, that gets rid of the bug, you know what I'm saying? And there's only like 2 caterpillars in here. There was one over here pooping on leaves and one over there pooping on leaves. So, that's how you can actually track them down and get rid of them. So, little tip right there. But you can use the Monterey BT. I think it's Bacillus something. Anyway, it's targets just the caterpillars. And it is organic. And it does have a half-life of, I think, 24 to 48 hours. So even after 24 to 48 hours, it's safe to eat. So yeah, and I wouldn't spray neem oil on this stuff. Neem oil tends to clog up the stomata of the plant leaf here, and I don't know, it's gross and it smells gross. I guess if you are going to spray pesticides, figure out what bug it is first, and then try to use a pesticide designed for that. Some pesticides cover, like, they say they take care of like 50, 60 to 100 different insects. But if you don't have to use those like chemical pesticides, there are just organic ways to get rid of some of these pests. Like the caterpillars are super easy to find. You can just find them literally like hiding in a leaf and just get rid of that leaf, or just squeeze the leaf till the caterpillar explodes. And then no more caterpillar. And these caterpillars must have been pretty small when I put these things in the dome, because I missed them. And I even washed these off pretty darn good. And you can actually soak them in that Monterey BT before you put them into the dome. And then that will kill the caterpillars off, guaranteed. And these had no aphids or anything like that. So the only pest I was dealing with was caterpillar. And I forget what kind of caterpillar it is, but they're very common in Oregon, and they will actually mess up your plant pretty darn good depending on the plant. So yep, it's up to you what you want to do. Okay, so I lied. I thought I had 100% success rate. Well, remember that little dry plug I pointed out right here? It must not have got hydrated well enough, because this is what happens. So anyway, I'll take the loss. Not too worried about it. My neighbor actually gave me some cuttings of a mojito plant, which I tagged right here. So this is mojito. Oh God, it smells so good. I'm not sure if that one's rooted yet. I'm gonna pop it up a little bit to see. So I put this mojito in just a couple days afterwards. Another way you can tell is gently tug on it. If it doesn't just come straight out, it's got a little bit of roots. So that one's got a little bit of roots. I think it's safe to feed it because it literally went in the next day. And yeah, my neighbor was like, "You want some mint?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't take it. I don't want leaves though. I just give me the cuttings." And she's like, "Okay." So she gave me a bundle of them. Decided to root one of them. That way I can establish this plant now, and once it's big enough to take another 50 cuttings off of, which will probably be next year, hopefully, maybe I can get 10 off of this one by the end of the season, and then next year I'll definitely be able to get 50 more. But yeah, the mint plant that I took all these cuttings off, let me show that one to you real quick. Hold on, let me grab it. All right, this is the one, and as you can see where I did take the cut and left those little guys, they're starting to grow too. And it looks like the ones I left behind are actually, man, I could take more cuttings off of this. Probably not enough to get another 50, but I could probably get half of that dome filled again with 25 or so, because there's plenty I left on the side here. Because these ones were very small. I don't know, the plant was a definite 6 to 7 inches taller than it is now, and as tall as these guys are. So that's why I was like, oh, time to take some cuttings. And it was, not about to flower, but it will start to flower soon. So maybe I will take, 25 more and just kind of do every other plug like a grid. You just go here, 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 here. And it'll fill the dome. It'll look full, but it will only be half as many cuttings. And I don't really want to mess with these woody ones at all, because I could, but they'll take a little longer to root. Even though the bigger stemmed ones in there didn't take as long as I thought they would, everything pretty much rooted at the same time. So that's the miracle of that root hormone that I use. And it just, I don't know what that stuff does as far as tells the plant to root. I mean, obviously I know what it does. It softens up the cell tissue enough to have the plant force roots out of those little epicormic spots or any epicormic growth. But yeah, I might go through this thing, thin it out one more time, get 25 more, and then I'll have 75 mint plants to put back there where I need them. All right, one more indication that these things are kind of hungry is, see this one that's a little droopy? See how all of them are standing up nice and tall? This one's a little droopy. I see roots on the stem down there. So I know it has roots, but the plug is dry. So I think I am just gonna go ahead and feed these things, since I know all of them have roots, even this mojito. And the problem with feeding them now, because this one hasn't established as many roots as these ones, it'll still grow roots, it'll just grow roots a little slower. But if I put in some root boosting liquid, like, you know, they love kelp. For some reason, it helps the roots grow faster. And there are like mycorrhizae fungal powders you can add to the soil when you're transplanting, and that will just explode the root growth as well. So yeah, there's some tips for you. So I did notice roots at about day 3, but nothing coming out of the bottom. Just stuff that kind of looked like, you know, just like that. Just a few popping, nothing crazy, but yeah, 5 days later, pretty much ready for transplant. Or definitely ready for some food and a transplant. Yeah, I'm just gonna give them a light feeding. I'm not too worried about this mojito. It's got roots, they'll keep growing. So, yep. So if you are gonna feed them in the plugs, like do it like I did the watering, just, you know, about 1.5 liters. Actually, they're pretty wet. So, you know, maybe 800 to 1,000 milliliters. Just like a big mason jar, not the big mason jar, but you know, just a mason jar full. If you don't have a ppm meter, do the math on like what's a liter. It's or a gallon's like 3.8 liters. So it would be like the tiniest little bit of fertilizer from those 20 all-purpose stuff, that miracle stuff. Anyway, I'm gonna put them back on the rack. I keep an eye on them, so they've been used to some serious humidity, which has been basically keeping them alive. If you see some of them start to really start to droop, put the dome right back on it. They will perk back up. So I'm gonna feed them and put the dome back on them. That'll help, you know, just keep them from sagging at all. And then once those roots, you know, find that food, they're gonna grow. I'm gonna have to take the dome off anyway, because some of them are already touching the top, and whichever ones are touching, they're gonna start like bending over. And if it gets too humid in there, that can, you know, get mold issues with the top of that plant. So here comes a feeding, and yeah, these things will be ready to be like hardened off outdoors here in just about a day or 2. So yeah, these things root really fast, super easy. And I guess one way you can do it is just mix up a gallon of liquid fertilizer. You know, just use the small end of the scoop, boom. You know it's gonna be about 350 to 450 ppm. And also too, the ppm of your tap water, if you're gonna use tap water for the first time, feeding them, my tap water is about 80 ppm. So it's always, you know, the dissolved solids of the fertilizer, it's always going to be about 80 to 100 ppm less than what your meter says. So when I do the recommended feeding on the, you know, label for one of those little scoops per gallon, it comes out at about 450. So I know it's about 350 ppm, and that's the perfect amount you want to feed baby clone plants. If you're up in the 400 to 500s, you know, you run the risk of burning the tips. You'll notice if the tips start to turn brown, your nutrient dose is a little too hot. So about 250 to 350 ppm for the little guys. And if you want to add some kelp into it, go right ahead. And they're going to thank you for that. But yeah, if you're going to plan on using mycorrhizae and spending all that money on it, you know, and you don't have a filtered water system, I mean, you can Google, like, does the Airstone and letting the water sit aerating for several days, does that dissipate enough chlorine to not kill off your fungal network? Because that would suck. I know people that are like, oh, I just feed it tap water, but then they're putting mycorrhizae, liquid mycorrhizae into their reservoir and with tap water. And I'm like, dude, you just spent $150 on that gallon, or, you know, it's about $100, 70, 100, depending on which bottle you buy. But the stuff I use, I think, is $80 a gallon for this liquid mycorrhizae from Microbe Life Hydro. And it's amazing stuff, but you have to use filtered water. And if you do that, oh my God, your plants are gonna love you so much. I guess I might as well show you, you know, the feeding stuff. So it's the little scoop, or the, you know, the scoop, they give you a big one and a little one. It's basically just, you know, the little guy, put it into your watering can. I have a 2-gallon watering can, so I put 2 scoops in there, filled it up with water, And then I'm gonna put it into the bottom of the tray. I'll show you how it looks. All right, since I'm doing this one-handed, I just kind of put the plug tray off to the side. I already mixed my water, and I thought maybe I'd kind of show you guys what the meter I use looks like. So this is basically a ppm meter. It measures the TDS, total dissolved solids, of your water. And I guess I should have tested the water first to see what ppm it was running at. Oh, this one's running. Oh wait, I haven't really mixed it. Let me give it a stir. I bet a lot of the stuff's sitting at the bottom. Hold on. Okay, so 224. Yeah, okay, so guess what? I only put 1 scoop in. That was my bad. You know, sometimes I just get sidetracked. I got a little bit of ADD going on, so bear with me, folks. Got excited to feed it. I mean, you still could just start at 200. That's not going to be a bad thing. Okay, it raised it. Oh, well, maybe 100 or so. Not even 100. I don't know. Maybe I'm not putting big enough scoop in. I always thought that 1 scoop was around 200 ppm, but I guess not. Let's just fill her up a little bit. You want all those little black squares to be underwater because the root of the plugs sit on those little black squares right there. And then bam, I'm just gonna put the dome back on. Can't forget about this little gut. Oh, see, they want to just get pulled out. It's hard to do one-handed. So, boom, there you go. Okay. And I'm just gonna, I might just leave this outside for now. With the humidity dome on, it might get a little too hot in there though. So actually I'm gonna take it back and put it on the rack. I'm not gonna go against my rules. Back on the rack for a day, and then slowly introduce it to filtered sunlight with the dome off. So, all right, so back on the rack. Yeah, if it wasn't 90 something degrees outside today, if it was like 75 to 80, I'd totally just leave them outside under some filtered sunlight. I'd leave the dome off for about 10 minutes just to see if any of them start to sag. If those did start to sag, I would actually like maybe check them to see if they even rooted at all. Because without the dome, if they're sagging, that means that they probably didn't root. But typically when they start to sag with the dome on, it's because that plug is dry. So yeah, looks like my daughter wants to have a water balloon fight here or something. That'll be fun. But yep, got the microscope. And what I will do here, since I had a little hydration and I put quite a bit of nutrient water in, I'm gonna come through in about 15 minutes and just see what's left. And after 15 minutes or so, they're done soaking up the water. So maybe even in about 5 minutes. Like as soon as I see the drier plugs start to turn darker and I see it that it's wicked up completely, I'm just gonna dump whatever's left in that bottom tray out, get rid of it. So that's another thing you gotta, don't just put it in there and leave it in there. You might drown the roots and that's not a good thing. All right, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.